It was supposed to be the happiest moment of their lives, a beautiful wedding, a loving couple, and a future filled with promises. Family and friends gathered to witness the union of two hearts, their joy immortalized in photographs and celebrated across social media. The bride, radiant at 52, beamed with pride. The groom, a younger man, looked on with admiration. Together, they seemed unstoppable, a testament to love transcending boundaries of age and time. But as the likes and comments rolled in, something else began to unfold. Something no one at that wedding could have anticipated. What seemed like a simple act of sharing their joy with the world would set off a chain of events that would end in bloodshed. What could drive a man to destroy the very life he vowed to cherish? What could take a moment of celebration and turn it into a crime scene? This is the story of a wedding day turned nightmare, a love story shattered by suspicion and the devastating power of unchecked emotions. You're watching True Crime Mysteries, where we bring you the most gripping stories of betrayal, love, and tragedy. If you're fascinated by stories that uncover the dark side of human nature, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Stay with us as we unravel the chilling details of how a Facebook wedding photo led to murder. The story we're about to uncover begins with what seemed like a fairy tale. A second chance at love for a 52-year-old woman who had been through her share of heartache, and a younger man who promised to love her until the end of time. Together, they built a life filled with excitement, hope, and new beginnings. Their wedding day was the culmination of everything they had worked for, a beautiful celebration that marked the start of a new chapter. To share their happiness with the world, they posted a wedding photo on Facebook, a moment captured in time for everyone to see. But this simple, innocent act of joy would set in motion a series of events that no one could have predicted. In the days following their wedding, the couple's lives would take a dark turn. What began as a public display of love soon became the focal point of jealousy, insecurity, and resentment. His name was Michael, a man in his late 30s who, on the surface, appeared to be everything a woman could want: handsome, charming, and attentive. But underneath it all, Michael harbored deep insecurities about their relationship. The age gap between him and his wife, Jennifer, weighed on him more than anyone could see. It was a constant source of tension, one that simmered beneath the surface, never fully addressed. Jennifer, on the other hand, was a confident woman, happy to have found love again after years of living on her own. She was proud of their marriage, and sharing it with her friends on Facebook was her way of celebrating the new life they were building. But Michael couldn't see it that way. Every comment, every like on Jennifer's post, felt like a threat to him. To the outside world, it was just a wedding photo, a snapshot of a happy couple. But to Michael, it was more. A reminder of his insecurities, his fears of being overshadowed by her past relationships, and the pressure of living up to the expectations that came with being married to someone much older. And so, what was meant to be a joyful occasion, a simple post on social media, slowly began to unravel the fragile threads of their relationship. The cracks started to show. A single comment, one that seemed innocent enough, ignited a firestorm of jealousy. And before long, that fire would consume everything in its path. To understand the tragedy that was about to unfold, we must first take a closer look at the dynamics of Michael and Jennifer's relationship. It was, by all accounts, a whirlwind romance. They had met only a year before their wedding, and their connection was immediate. Jennifer, a successful woman in her 50s, had lived through the trials of previous relationships and had spent much of her life focusing on her career and personal growth. When she met Michael, he was everything she hadn't expected. A younger man who seemed to see her for who she truly was, someone who made her feel alive again. Their chemistry was undeniable, and soon, they were inseparable. Michael, for his part, was drawn to Jennifer's confidence and independence. She wasn't just another woman to him. She was a beacon of stability and security. Jennifer made him feel loved and appreciated, qualities he had never experienced in his past relationships. But there was one thing Michael couldn't shake: the age difference between them. At first, he convinced himself that their love was strong enough to overcome any external judgment. But deep down, a nagging insecurity festered. People talked, and he could feel the whispers. How could a woman twice his age, who had already been married before, be the one he would settle down with? He knew the world would question their love, and every comment or glance felt like a reminder of his inadequacy. Jennifer, on the other hand, had always prided herself on being a woman who didn't care what others thought. She had made peace with her past and was happy to embrace a new chapter in her life. She believed in their relationship, in Michael, and in the future they were building together. But as their marriage progressed, she began to notice a subtle shift in Michael's behavior. His insecurities began to manifest in small, unsettling ways. He would question her about past relationships, ask who was commenting on her posts, and show signs of jealousy when she received attention from other men. Jennifer brushed it off at first, believing that he was just adjusting to their life together. She didn't see the storm that was quietly brewing inside him. The first signs of trouble came just days after their wedding. Michael, feeling overwhelmed by the constant flow of likes and comments on Jennifer's Facebook post, began to fixate on the attention she was receiving. One comment, in particular, seemed to set him off. It was from an old friend of Jennifer's, a man who had known her long before Michael entered her life. The comment was harmless enough, a simple congratulations, you two look perfect together. But to Michael, it felt like a threat, an intrusion into their private world. He questioned Jennifer about it that night, asking her who this man was and why he was commenting on her post. Jennifer, taken aback by his reaction, tried to reassure him, but Michael's doubts only deepened. As the days passed, the tension in their home grew. Jennifer tried to calm Michael's growing paranoia, but it was clear that something had shifted. He became more possessive, more demanding of her time and attention. And Jennifer, who had always prided herself on her independence, began to feel stifled. What had once been a relationship built on love and respect was now slowly crumbling under the weight of Michael's jealousy and insecurity. Then, the night of the murder arrived. It was like any other night, at least on the surface. Michael and Jennifer were at home, their small apartment filled with the quiet hum of daily life. But beneath the surface, the tension had reached its breaking point. Michael had been drinking, something he had started doing more frequently as his anxiety about their relationship grew. And that night, as Jennifer was preparing for bed, Michael confronted her once again about the Facebook post. Jennifer had always been patient with Michael's insecurities, but that night, something was different. She could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating, as Michael approached her. He had been drinking, his movements unsteady, but his eyes were sharp with accusation. Jennifer had tried to go about her evening, preparing for bed and trying to unwind after a long day. But Michael couldn't let it go. The jealousy, the anger, it all bubbled to the surface. He confronted her again about the comment on the Facebook post. "Who is he?" Michael demanded, his voice rising. "Why is he commenting on our picture? Why are you letting him get close to you?" Jennifer, tired of the constant questioning, tried to remain calm. She knew that Michael's jealousy had been eating away at him for weeks, but she didn't understand why this particular comment had set him off. "Michael, it's just a friend from the past. There's nothing to it," she explained, trying to defuse the situation, but her words fell on deaf ears. Michael's face twisted with anger, his insecurities feeding off each word she said. He grabbed her arm, pulling her toward him. "You're lying," he spat. "You always do this. You think I don't see it? You think I don't know what's going on behind my back?" Jennifer was taken aback. This wasn't the man she had married. She had never seen him like this before. Aggressive, unhinged. She pulled away from him, trying to get some space. "Michael, please," she pleaded. "You're drunk. You're not thinking straight. Let's talk about this tomorrow when you're sober." But Michael didn't listen. His anger had clouded his judgment, and he was no longer thinking rationally. His mind was consumed by jealousy, by the belief that Jennifer was hiding something from him. The idea of her being admired by someone else, the thought of another man showing her attention. It was too much for him to handle. His hand tightened into a fist, and in that moment, everything changed. What started as a heated argument quickly escalated into something much more violent. In a split second, Michael lashed out. His rage took control, and Jennifer, caught off guard, was pushed to the ground. The impact stunned her, and before she could react, Michael was on top of her. His hands, once tender and loving, were now a force of destruction. He didn't stop. His mind, consumed by irrational jealousy, refused to let go of the idea that Jennifer had betrayed him in some way. The argument, the violence, it all happened so fast. Jennifer fought back, but she was no match for Michael's strength and the fury driving him. In the end, the man she had trusted, the man she had married, became her executioner. What had started as a fight over a Facebook post ended in the death of the woman Michael had promised to love and cherish. And in that moment, Michael's life would be forever changed. He had crossed a line from which there would be no return. As Jennifer's body lay lifeless on the floor, Michael stood over her, his mind still clouded by anger. The man who had once dreamed of a future with her now faced the reality of his actions. The moment he had taken her life was the moment he sealed his own fate. But it wasn't over yet. The aftermath of that night would lead to even darker revelations. By the time the authorities arrived, it was already too late. Michael, in his drunken stupor, had fled the scene, leaving Jennifer's body behind in their apartment. The silence that followed was suffocating, and it wasn't until the next morning that the neighbors, concerned by the absence of any sound from the couple's home, finally called the police. When officers arrived, they found Jennifer's body, lifeless and cold, the result of a brutal, senseless attack. At first, the case seemed like any other domestic dispute gone tragically wrong. The scene was chaotic, with signs of a struggle and a sense of violence that lingered in the air. But what struck the investigators immediately was the discrepancy between the scene they found and the image of the couple they had been led to believe existed. The wedding photo, the smiling faces, they were still fresh in everyone's minds. How could this same man, who had appeared so happy in the photos, be capable of such violence? Detectives began their work, canvassing the area for evidence and questioning anyone who might have information. It didn't take long before they learned of the growing tension between Michael and Jennifer. Neighbors reported hearing loud arguments in the days leading up to Jennifer's death, with Michael's jealousy becoming more pronounced. Jennifer's friends recalled her expressing concern about his possessiveness, though she had brushed it off, thinking it was just a phase. But for those who knew them well, it was clear that something was not right. The breakthrough came when investigators found Michael's phone, which he had left behind in his rush to flee. A simple act of carelessness, but one that would ultimately reveal his guilt. The phone was unlocked, and when they checked his messages, they found a disturbing exchange between him and Jennifer. The messages were filled with paranoia, accusations, and threats. Michael had been consumed by jealousy for weeks, and his messages painted a portrait of a man slowly losing his grip on reality. It was clear now, this wasn't a random act of violence. It was a calculated outburst of rage that had been building for some time. Yet, it wasn't just the messages that led investigators to Michael. The Facebook post, the one that had sparked the final confrontation, played a pivotal role in unraveling the truth. Jennifer had posted the wedding photo on social media, sharing her joy with the world, but to Michael, it was a symbol of everything he feared. Public attention, the reminder of her past, and the possibility of losing her to someone else. His obsession with the post, the comment from Jennifer's old friend, and his own deep insecurities had led to this devastating moment. As detectives pieced together the events of that fateful night, they began to understand the true extent of Michael's jealousy. It wasn't just about a single comment or a wedding photo. It was about his overwhelming fear of inadequacy, of not measuring up to the expectations he had placed on himself as Jennifer's husband. And when those insecurities collided with alcohol and anger, they became deadly. The authorities were quick to issue a manhunt for Michael, but it wasn't long before they found him. He had tried to flee, hoping to escape the consequences of his actions, but he was caught just a few days later, hiding in a motel. His arrest was swift, and as he was taken into custody, he showed no remorse. Michael had already admitted to the crime, though his explanation was a disturbing one. He claimed that he didn't mean to kill Jennifer, that in the heat of the moment, the anger just took over. But the evidence told a different story. The trial of Michael Matthews began months after his arrest. The courtroom was filled with tension, the weight of the crime heavy in the air. Jennifer's family, devastated by her loss, sat silently in the gallery, their grief written across their faces. Michael, now sober and composed, sat at the defendant's table, but the guilt was undeniable. He had confessed to the murder, but the defense team would argue that it was an act of temporary insanity, a crime of passion driven by jealousy and alcohol. Michael's defense attorney painted him as a man who had been pushed to the edge. He spoke of Michael's deep insecurities, his overwhelming need for control, and his belief that Jennifer was drifting away from him. He claimed that the Facebook post, the comment from Jennifer's old friend, had shattered Michael's fragile sense of self-worth, leading to the explosion of rage that resulted in Jennifer's death. The defense tried to frame the tragedy as a momentary lapse in judgment, a crime of passion that was not premeditated. But the prosecution wasn't swayed. They presented a starkly different picture. They highlighted the pattern of abusive behavior that had been growing over the course of Michael and Jennifer's short marriage. The jealousy, the controlling nature, the constant accusations. These were not signs of a man driven to a breaking point in a single moment. They were signs of a man who had been plotting this for some time. Jennifer's friends testified to her growing fear of Michael, her desire to get away from his suffocating grip, and the prosecution made it clear. Michael's jealousy had been festering long before the fateful night of the murder. The turning point came when the jury was shown the evidence from Michael's phone, messages filled with obsessive thoughts and threats. They saw the extent of his control over Jennifer, how he monitored her every move and couldn't stand the thought of her interacting with anyone else. They saw his jealousy consume him, and they saw the final, violent act that had shattered a life. The prosecution argued that Michael's actions were not the result of a temporary emotional outburst, but a calculated response to his own insecurities and fears. It was a crime of rage, yes, but also one of entitlement, his belief that he had the right to control Jennifer's every move. As the trial went on, it became clear that the true tragedy of this case wasn't just the death of Jennifer, but the life that had been destroyed in the process. Michael, once a man full of promise and hope, had allowed his insecurities to drive him to commit the unthinkable. And in the end, it was that same insecurity, that same fear of losing control, that would ultimately cost him everything. After several weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated for only a few hours before returning with their verdict. Michael Matthews was found guilty of second-degree murder. The courtroom fell silent as the judge read the verdict, and Michael's face remained stoic. He was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. The sentence, though long, could never bring Jennifer back. It could never undo the pain and devastation that Michael's actions had caused. Jennifer's family and friends, though relieved by the conviction, knew that nothing could ever fill the void left by her death. They had lost a daughter, a sister, a friend, someone who had so much life ahead of her, someone who had been taken by the very person she had trusted most. Michael's sentence would never erase the scars he had left on their hearts. The case served as a painful reminder of how fragile relationships can be, and how unchecked jealousy and insecurity can lead to unimaginable consequences. The aftermath of Jennifer's murder left an indelible mark on everyone who knew her. Friends and family tried to piece together the fragments of a life that had been violently cut short. Jennifer's parents, who had always dreamed of seeing her live a full and happy life, were left to mourn the loss of their daughter, taken from them far too soon. They found themselves questioning how a relationship that had started with such promise could end in such a horrific tragedy. Jennifer's friends, who had celebrated her wedding with joy, were left in shock. How could the man they had welcomed into their lives turn out to be capable of such violence? They struggled to reconcile the smiling man in the wedding photos with the one who had taken Jennifer's life. For them, the horror was not just in the murder itself, but in the betrayal of trust, in the manipulation and control that had existed behind closed doors, hidden from view. As for Michael, his life, too, was irrevocably altered. Behind bars, he faced the reality of his actions. Though he had expressed some remorse during the trial, it was clear that his remorse was more for the consequences of his actions than for the loss of Jennifer's life. His life, once filled with possibilities, was now consumed by the walls of his prison cell. In interviews after his conviction, he claimed to regret what had happened, but many who had followed the case remained skeptical. Could someone who had so callously taken a life truly feel regret, or was it just another attempt to avoid facing the full extent of his crime? The tragedy of this case isn't just about the death of Jennifer. It's about the ripple effect that violence can have on everyone it touches. The friends, the family, the community, all of them are left to pick up the pieces. And as time goes on, they are left to grapple with the reality that a life, once full of hope and promise, can be taken in an instant. A relationship, built on trust and love, can turn into something dark and dangerous. And for Michael, the consequences of his jealousy and rage will haunt him for the rest of his life. This case serves as a chilling reminder of the dangers of unchecked jealousy, of the toxic grip that insecurity can have on a person's mind. It also highlights the importance of communication and trust in any relationship. When these elements are missing, when one person feels entitled to control the other, it can lead to catastrophic results. Jennifer's story, though tragic, is a cautionary tale. It serves as a reminder to us all of the importance of recognizing unhealthy patterns in relationships, of understanding the signs of possessiveness and control, and of ensuring that love is not confused with domination. Jennifer's death was senseless, but perhaps, by sharing her story, we can learn from her tragedy and prevent others from experiencing the same fate. Thank you for joining us as we've explored this heart-wrenching case. If you found this story compelling, please consider subscribing to True Crime Mysteries for more deep dives into real-life stories of crime, tragedy, and justice. Your support helps us continue to bring these stories to light. If you have thoughts or comments on this case, feel free to share them below. Let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay safe, stay aware, and always trust your instincts.